Is it about price or is it about size? We'll find out this week on Motoring 2005.
TSN's Motoring 2005 is brought to you by the new Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Midas, for mechanics known for their work and their word. Trust the Midas touch.
You know, I don't think there's ever been a day when us humans were not complaining about gas prices. Heck, I'm old enough to remember when we were worried that the price of a gallon of gasoline would surpass the 39-cent mark. But you know, when you work on a program like Motoring, people are always asking you about cars and trucks, but nobody ever asks me about gas mileage. And when you think of it, it's fairly simple. Small car, better gas mileage. But as we've said before, automakers make a ton of cash on selling trucks because people are buying them. I mean, take the Hummer, for instance, over $100,000, a major gas guzzler. But when GM got involved with Hummer, some people are actually shocked that the General would sell such a beast. Well, here's GM's Bob Lutz to put it all in perspective.
Well, I guess we're supposed to be at war with our customers, and at $1.25 a gallon, we're supposed to tell the person who wants to buy a Hummer, we say, no, we're afraid out of social responsibility, we are not going to sell you this car. You have to join the lottery and only one customer in 10 will be allowed to buy one. What happens is the people in government, whether it's state government or national government, and the environmentalists, the minute you say, well, let's raise the price of fuel, because if we make gasoline the same price that it is in Europe, at over $1 a liter, people start asking themselves, should I really be driving something this big? I think as a country, the U.S. has to decide what does it want. Do we want reasonably sized vehicles that get good fuel economy, or do we want cheap gasoline? Pick one, because you can't have both.
Bob Lutz, you gotta love him. He is so refreshing. Anyway, this week we're gonna meet some people who will not apologize for owning a Hummer, but first we're gonna check out the new Hummer H3.
The history behind Hummer is a very interesting one. General Motors approached a company by the name of AM General, which is the founding company that builds the Humvee vehicles for military service. General Motors was very interested in purchasing the Hummer brand because we felt with its iconic looks, it would be a great brand to sell within the United States. We purchased the brand back in 1999 from AM General and subsequently then introduced a civilian version of the H1. That was followed by the H2, which many people are very familiar with on the road today. With the success of the H2 and the fact that the product did so well, we wanted to be able to bring that iconic design and unparalleled off-road proposition to more consumers and make the brand more accessible. Thus, the brand new Hummer H3. It is a mid-sized Hummer. And what we really like about this product is that it enables us to bring Hummer to people who had aspired to Hummer but either couldn't get into a Hummer H2 because of its size, it just didn't fit their garage or their lifestyle, or it just didn't fit their pocketbook.
The only thing is that I found it a little bit underpowered. It's not a 0 to 60 vehicle. You know, it's not going to win any races on that. But it was a little bit slow getting out into heavy traffic from a side road, for instance. I would have liked to have been able to get out there a little more quickly. But other than that, I mean, it cruised well on the highway, and the tach and the gas gauge didn't seem to be tied together. As the tach went up, the gas went down, kind of a thing. This seemed to do all right today.
The tire size, the location of the tires, the height of the vehicle off the ground are all essential for the performance of the vehicle traversing obstacles. From the drivetrain standpoint, the engine that was selected, a 3.5 liter, 5-cylinder, all-aluminum Vortec engine, is one of General Motors' family of award-winning truck engines. It's a very compact engine in terms of size. It allowed the vehicle to have a very short front overhang, which facilitates rock climbing. We had a program objective to achieve 20 miles per gallon, and we were able to do that, again, by matching the correct engine with the rest of the drivetrain components, focusing as carefully as we could on aerodynamics. Even though the basic shape of the truck is not one of a speeding bullet, we worked hard to every place we could soften a corner or change a radius to improve the airflow around the truck. We did that, and in the end, the manual transmission is now rated at 16 miles per gallon city, 20 miles per gallon highway. Its first two vehicles obviously were not fuel efficient in the sense that that was a primary objective at all. In our program, fuel efficiency was one of the objectives we set out when we laid the groundwork for the program.
One of the great things about the H3 is we will be offering two transmissions, a 5-speed manual as well as an automatic. And what we find, particularly with the 5-speed manual, is that the true off-roaders, the aficionados, love the control of a 5-speed manual transmission.
When I drove it, I was very happy that they put a small engine in it. Some are going to say that it's not enough. You have those who are going to say that Hummer is polluting the environment. So by putting that small 5 cylinders, I think Hummer is playing the green card. Because if you look at the numbers, I'm pretty sure that Hummer is going to be equal to any other SUV, maybe even below. So I think it's a good card to play.
One of the great things that Hummer enables us to do is to bring in conquest customers. 60% of our Hummer buyers do not own a General Motors product. GM's got some really great brands that we can introduce these people to that they've never been exposed to.
In a three-dimensional world, 2 wheels is just not enough. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
To paraphrase Jim Kenzie, motoring's resident curmudgeon, I have seen the face of the future, and it's got a Lexus badge right in the middle of its grille. This week on Test Drive, the RX 400H, the H standing for hybrid. There's a reoccurring phrase that comes standard with every RX 400H, no compromise. In simple terms, it means that most will never know the RX is a hybrid. Indeed, a cursory glance shows little out of the ordinary. Those with keen eyes will see the badge and a grille in the front bumper fascia, which is there to feed the cooling air to the hybrid. But that's about it. Just because you buy a hybrid doesn't mean you've got to give up on luxury. This thing comes absolutely loaded to the nines and then some. For instance, full leather, power everything, including tilt and telescopic steering. You also get wireless headphones for the in-car entertainment system and a full navigation system that also doubles as a backup camera. Whenever you select reverse, well, this screen shows you exactly what's going on behind, so you're not going to run little Johnny's bike over. The bottom line, buying a hybrid does not mean compromise. At the heart of the 400H's drivetrain is the latest iteration of Toyota's hybrid Synergy drive system. As before, there's a large 288-volt battery, a ton of electronics, and a gas-electric hybrid up front. In this case, it's a 3.3-litre V6 engine that's good for 208 horsepower and 212 pound-feet of torque. There's also an electric motor that twists out a further 165 horse and 262 pound-feet of torque, anywhere between 0 and 1500 RPM. Adding a second optional electric motor which drives the rear wheels transforms the 400H into a real ripper while adding a true on-demand all-wheel drive capability. The beauty of the 400H is the fact that there are no compromises whatsoever. Consider what's under the hood: a 3.3-litre gas engine, an electric motor, and a second electric motor that drives the rear wheels. When all three bits are at full chat, the driver gets 270 horsepower and V8-like performance. The advantage? You get 4-cylinder fuel economy and ultra-low emissions. It really does not get any better. It's like having your cake and eating it too. Lexus also deserves credit for honesty. Many simply add the electric motor and engine outputs together to arrive at a pie-in-the-sky number. Simply, the electric motor works at the low end, the gas engine at the top, with a degree of crossover in the middle. So the next time you see a 600 horsepower hybrid advertised, ask yourself a question. Is that a real number, or is it hype? There's no hype to the RX. Matting the gas pedal elicits a loud chirp from all four tyres and a run to 100 kilometers an hour in less than 8 seconds. More impressive, however, is that a little over 2/3 of the way down a drag strip, the speedo flashed to 160 kilometers an hour and in less than 15 seconds, which is nothing short of remarkable.
When you get around to the back of the Lexus, well, you get exactly what you expect. Plenty of trunk space, split folding rear seats, a privacy cover to keep prying eyes off your valuables. In short, it's as flexible and versatile as an SUV should. The beauty of the design, however, well, it is that it allows all of the hybrid items, the rear electric motor and battery, to be packaged efficiently, meaning again, there's no compromise.
The other place the 400h does not compromise is in its handling. While it did not match a sports car through the pylons, it is more than capable of holding its own without giving up on the comfort Lexus is famous for. The steering is crisp, the amount of body roll well within acceptable limits, and understeer-only surfaces as speeds verge on silly. The only thing not to like is the brake pedal feel. Because of the regenerative braking, which captures waste energy and recharges the battery, it's a little wooden and less than progressive.
This Lexus 400h is a complete package without compromise. It's got space, comfort, utility and luxury. It also delivers V8 power with 4-cylinder fuel economy. But best of all, and probably its signature trademark, it rides and drives like any other vehicle.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns spark plugs. In the last 10 model years, a lot has happened with spark plugs. They all look the same, but materials have changed significantly. On older vehicles, you've got a conventional spark plug in many cases that looks like this one. Good for 40 to 60,000 kilometers, depending on application and manufacturer. About $4 a pop. Now, on newer vehicles, you have platinum tip spark plugs like this one. This one's nice and shiny because it's new, but it's also nice and shiny because they're nickel plated or chrome plated. And that plating prevents them, in most cases, from seizing into the cylinder head. Good piece of advice though, when you're changing any spark plug, get a good quality anti-seize compound painted on the threads every time you change the spark plugs to prevent thread damage and seizing in the cylinder head. Now, these platinum tip spark plugs are expensive, 12 to 16 or even as much as $18 each is not uncommon, but they last for 160,000 kilometers if your vehicle's not burning oil. If your engine's burning a lot of oil, any spark plug can foul up no matter what type you've got. Now, one thing you should remember, when you're changing spark plugs, make your mechanic's life easier. It should be done with the engine cool or cold. Matter of fact, if your engine has aluminum cylinder heads, it's mandatory that it's cool or cold before you start working on it because those threads are very fragile. If it's cool, it's much easier to do the job, much easier on your hands, and it makes life a lot easier. That's your Midas tip of the week.
Hummer Happenings 05, second annual event. We've got 30 trucks here today, ranging from H1, H2, and now the new H3 was here today. We've had 3 trucks for H3. Everything's been positive so far. I've had some say, well, we want a little bit more mud, and other people say, no, I don't want more mud because it's 5 hours to clean the truck afterwards. So basically what we want is a day like today, a little bit of rain, give us a little bit of mud, but in the afternoon it turns out like we've got, it's a perfect day for it. They say the H3 will actually outperform the H2 and H1 off the road, and now I can believe it. If I actually see it with my own eyes, I can believe it. Now, we didn't go through a lot of water today. We only got through about 6-7 inches of water, but definitely the clearance on the H3 is impressive. I'm very pleased with what I saw, and I'm sure we'll sell a lot of them. This year what we did was the drivers actually donated 2 of their seats to allow a Wish child or a Sunshine Foundation Dream for Kids child to actually partake in the off-road event along with one of their parents or guardians. So it gave them a chance to be part of a Hummer group, off-roading in a Hummer, not just driving around in a paved area. I actually had to go out, knock on doors, find people who would donate their land to the charity and to the children to actually allow us to come in and spend some time and play for the day to allow these kids to have this opportunity.
Today we went on an off-road Hummer ride trip, and it was really fun. 2 Hummers got stuck in the mud and had to get towed out. The Hummers are really big and have humongous engines, and they can seat up to 8 passengers, I figured out.
When I started doing this last year, I wouldn't do this unless I actually had a children's charity involved. So to be able to give something to these kids that need it, it makes the whole day worth it. And one thing I come to find is every person that comes to this event feels the same way I do. And at the end of the day, I can go home and I can be proud of what we've done here, and I can be very happy that we've made kids smile and give them something to think about, talk about, and look back on.
You know, those Hummer owners are really nice people, and they're also bright enough to know that they're not going to be passing too many gas stations. But you know, our good friends south of the border, that's another story. About a year ago, there was a report that a whole mess of Hummer owners were complaining to the dealerships because their Hummer was getting poor gas mileage. Hello, as Jim Kenzie likes to say, how do these people find the bathroom at night? All right, let's head to the Quaker State Garage and join Bill Gardner.
Brad, if there was ever a vehicle that makes no sense at all, it's got to be the Hummer. I'm sure it's a great military vehicle, but that's where it should have stayed. When they started selling them to the public, it just, I don't know, it just makes no sense to me. Things about as aerodynamic as a sail, really heavy, hard on fuel. It's just a big brick going down the road. I don't get it, you know. I love my pickup trucks. They're hard on fuel, they're heavy, but at least you can do something with them. You got this big cargo box, you can tow trailers, you can carry lots of stuff. This truck belongs to my buddy Scott. He uses it for snow plowing, landscaping, hauling loads. It's always doing work. And you know, you can justify that poor fuel economy when at least it does something for you. Anyhow, what I want to talk about this week is the fact that on these big trucks now, this truck's got over 300 horsepower, 6-liter V8, all kinds of zip. Even with a load in it, this thing will go like crazy. You need lots of brakes to stop a truck like that, so they've gone to 4-wheel disc brakes. Great big disc brake system on this thing, front and rear. A huge vented rotor on the back, huge caliper with 2 pistons, big brake pads. Now, all this hardware is very expensive when it comes time to replace it. I just had to do brakes on this truck the other day. It's a 2002 with 75,000 K on it. Already the rear brakes were completely gone, metal to metal. Trashed the rotors. The pads were seized in the keyways that they fit into. That's a big problem with rear disc brake systems. What we had to do was clean out all the rust out of the caliper brackets. That takes quite a while. Fit some new pads, put some new rotors. We had a leaking rear axle seal, and it wrecked both the rotors. Now, you can see the rotor off the far side where it didn't get metal to metal, how rusted it was, and because the brakes were seized, the brakes were really doing nothing on the rear of this truck. You know, you could stand on the pedal, you'd stop the truck with front brakes, but you were getting nothing out of the rear. And you can see how heavily rusted both sides of that rotor should be. There's a rotor off a car that I removed the other day where the brakes were working. You can see how glazed and polished up that surface is on both sides of the rotor. This one was way too thin to be safe, but you can see the working surface was in a polished condition. It was definitely a workable surface, where this one is just cratered with rust. Now on this side of the truck, we had the brakes gone metal to metal. The pads were right down to nothing, completely locked up with rust, and we had to replace 2 rotors, axle seal, and new pads in the back. Now, $619.50 each for new rotors from the dealer, and $242.50 for a set of rear pads just to do the rear brakes on this vehicle. So we were $1,480 some odd dollars just in parts. Then you've got labor, then you've got tax. It's a big repair bill. So, you know, when you're buying into a vehicle like this, you've got to be prepared for this kind of repair when it comes time. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2005.
Regular viewers know I'm no fan of motorcycles. I don't care how safe a rider you are. Tell that to the guy in the transport truck on the freeway who decides, I gotta have that lane. There's just no way you're gonna survive just about any kind of confrontation. Now, if you're doing it in a controlled environment, I mean, even dirt bikers, they're out there by themselves. And I just spent a weekend down at Shannonville Racetrack near Belleville, Ontario. A bunch of guys spent the weekend blasting around the track in vintage motorcycles. And I thought, that was pretty cool. They've got paramedics on duty. They're all going in the same direction. There's no transport trucks. And if something does happen, they've got people that can help them out in a hurry. But there's a special place in hell reserved for a particular type of motorcyclist. We had a case like this in Toronto just the other day. This idiot, this jerk, has one of these crotch rocket motorcycles, these billion horsepower things. He decides to pull a wheelie pulling off from a traffic light with his girlfriend on the back. Well, guess what? She didn't stay there for long. She's now in a hospital and may be in the hospital for the rest of what's going to be a very unfortunate life. What kind of fool pulls a wheelie with a passenger? Now, I should also talk about the guys that do lane splitting on the highway, go rocket at 140 kilometers an hour between lines of driving cars. What kind of jerks are you people? And it's not just you. You're not just killing yourself. You're killing us, and you're taking up valuable hospital beds. So if you're going to ride a motorcycle, please try and have half a brain. Don't lane split, and for God's sake, no wheelies with passengers. I'm Jim Kenzie.
So the Hummer H3 is cheaper than the H2, but would you buy one? Well, GM is hoping you will, but personally I will take a pass. Not that it's a bad vehicle, but I'm the kind of guy that can't understand why someone would buy a BMW X5 instead of a wagon. As Bill said earlier, if you're going to buy a truck, at least make sure you've got room to put stuff in. But then again, if we all drove the same vehicle, we all made the right practical decision every day, life would be pretty dull. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
The moment that a thread or a yarn would break, if you didn't catch that, then all of the cloth from there on was wasted. Well, that same sort of process applies on the Toyota production system today.
TSN's Motoring 2005 has been brought to you by the new Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Midas, for mechanics known for their work and their word. Trust the Midas touch.